Question 676. A deed is required to A. Be signed by a legally competent grantee. B. Include a legal description of the property being conveyed. C. Be signed by a legally competent grantor. D. Include the history of prior ownership of the property dating back at least 25 years. Correct answer is C. Be signed by a legally competent grantor. A legal description is essential for the deed to be effective in conveying a specific property. It is not always legally mandated for the validity of the deed itself in all jurisdictions. Similarly, the grantee's signature is typically not required for validity, and the history of prior ownership not being a requirement. Therefore, the single absolutely essential element listed for a deed to be valid and effectuate a transfer is indeed be signed by a legally competent grantor. Without the signature of a legally competent grantor, the deed is generally void and no transfer of ownership occurs. Question 677. A tenant with a lease to reside in an apartment building asks the landlord to repair the furnace that provides heat for all the units in the building. The landlord ignores the tenant's repeated requests. It is winter time and very cold in the building. In reaction, the tenant decides to stop paying his monthly rent until the landlord does the repairs. A. Legally in the right. B. Legally in the wrong. C. Authorized to check into a hotel and have the landlord pay the bill. D. None of the above. Correct answer is A. Legally in the right. The tenant legally in the right, under the specific circumstances described, to halt rental payments to the extent their use and enjoyment of the premises has been significantly impaired by the lack of heat. California law implies a warranty of habitability in all residential leases, requiring landlords to maintain the premises in a condition fit for human occupancy. This includes providing essential utilities like heat. When a landlord fails to fulfill their obligations under the lease, such as the implied warranty of habitability, making the premises uninhabitable, the tenant may have grounds for constructive eviction. Tenants' actions for constructive eviction. To claim constructive eviction, the tenant typically needs to 1. Notify the landlord of the defective condition, lack of heat. 2. Give the landlord a reasonable time to repair the condition. 3. Vacate the premises if the landlord fails to make the necessary repairs within a reasonable time. The tenant may remain in possession and halt rental payments according to the degree their use and enjoyment has been impaired. This is a significant aspect of constructive eviction remedies in California. The reduction or cessation of rent is tied to the extent the uninhabitable condition diminishes the value of the tenancy. Due to the uninhabitable lack of heat in winter and the landlord's ignored repair requests, the tenant may be legally justified in withholding rent, proportional to the diminished habitability. Question 678. Which of these expenses would not be included in the Uniform Settlement Statement form provided to the parties after a RESPA-covered transaction closes? A. Appraisal fee. B. Finder's fees paid to a lender by a broker. C. Title insurance fee. D. Pest inspection cost. Correct answer is B. Finder's fees paid to a lender by a broker. The closing disclosure is designed to clearly itemize all charges imposed on the borrower and the seller in connection with the real estate settlement. It focuses on costs directly related to the transaction and paid by the buyer or seller. Finder's fees paid by a broker to a lender are an arrangement between those two parties and are not a direct cost being paid by the buyer or seller as part of the settlement. Finder's fees from broker to lender, though potentially affecting borrowing costs, are not settlement charges disclosed to buyer and seller on the closing disclosure. Finder's fees are illegal under RESPA. Question 679. Complete title to a property can be transferred with A. Trust deed. B. Grant deed. C. Both A and B. D. Neither A or B. Correct answer is B. Grant deed. A grant deed is a common instrument used in California to transfer ownership of real property. By using a grant deed, the grantor, seller, typically implies two warranties to the grantee, buyer. 1. That the grantor has not previously conveyed the same estate or any interest therein to anyone else. 2. That the estate is free from any encumbrances, liens, easements, etc., created by the grantor or anyone claiming under them, other than those disclosed in the deed. A grant deed is designed to transfer the complete title the grantor holds at the time of conveyance, unless specified otherwise. A trust deed is a security instrument used in California to secure a loan on real property. It involves three parties: the borrower, trustor, the lender, beneficiary, and a neutral third party, trustee. The trustor conveys the property title to the trustee, who holds it as security for the loan. The trust deed does not transfer complete title to the buyer. It creates a lien against the property in favor of the lender. Once the loan is fully paid off, the beneficiary directs the trustee to reconvey the title back to the borrower via a reconveyance deed. Therefore, a grant deed is the instrument used to transfer complete title from a seller to a buyer in a real estate transaction. A trust deed is used to secure a loan. Question 680. The amount of annual property taxes paid by a homeowner is determined by A. Collectively assessing the land and improvements, then multiplying by the tax rate, B. Separately assessing the land and improvements, then multiplying the total by the tax rate, C. Separately assessing the land and improvements, then multiplying by different tax rates, D. Any of the above. Correct answer is B. Separately assessing the land and improvements, then multiplying the total by the tax rate. The county assessor, in California, or the relevant local government agency determines the assessed value of the property. This usually involves assessing the land separately from any improvements, buildings, landscaping, etc., on the land. The assessed value of the land is added to the assessed value of the improvements to arrive at the total assessed value of the property. The total assessed value is then multiplied by the applicable tax rates. These rates are set by the various taxing authorities that levy property taxes in the area, e.g., county, city, school districts, special districts. Often, there is a basic countywide tax rate plus additional rates for specific jurisdictions. Therefore, the process involves assessing the components separately, summing them up, and then applying the tax rate, or a combination of rates to the total.